Good afternoon, everyone who can join us for this latest edition of Law Chat, which is a series of monthly interviews with luminaries from the legal sector, offering insights and ideas, and hopefully just a little bit of inspiration as well. I'm Simon Tupman. I've been the convener of Law Chat for the past, 10 episodes, and I'm delighted that this episode is being brought to you in association with Moore Markhams, accountants and business advisors providing unique and specialist financial services to the legal profession. And I'm delighted that we're joined today by Lucy Dickens, all the way from Perth in Western Australia. Lucy is a solicitor or lawyer with a senior associate with Berman and Ryde in Perth, but also she's a mentor to young lawyers and professionals. She's also now an author of a terrific book called It's Time to Do Law Differently. And I'm going to be talking to her about this book today. And she's also a speaker as well as a fanatical podcaster as well. Lucy, thank you for joining us on Law Chat today.
Thank you, Simon. It's my pleasure.
How are you?
Very well. It's 9:30 a.m. here, so I'm fresh and early. It's first thing in the morning.
Well done.
Kind of.
Well done. And this is an interesting thing. I want to ask you a little bit about your background, but here you are bright and fresh in the morning. You've got young children as well. How do you manage to juggle all these balls effectively by coming in on the train to work, getting the kids off to school, writing books, and also working as you do at the office?
That's why I followed up that comment with, well, kind of, because it's actually not first thing in the morning. It might be just the start of the business day. The short answer to that is that, well, at least for while I was writing my book, my days started at about 4 a.m. I would get out of bed before the kids woke up so I could get a few good solid hours of writing or editing in before they woke up. And I actually found that although my whole life I've told myself I'm not a morning person, I am a morning person, and that time of the day when I'm fresh out of bed is actually really, really productive for me. So I've tried to keep that going, not necessarily 4 a.m., but 5 a.m. at least, and really using those first few hours in the morning, or as long as I've got until the children wake up. My kids are 5 and 2, to really just get my most important thing done. But I suppose as well as that, because I'm asked this question a lot about how to juggle family and work and all of those competing priorities, is I'm very good at saying no. I don't find it difficult to say no or to turn things down. I'm quite clear on what is important to me and how I want to be spending my time. So I stick to doing those things. And I have a very supportive husband. We both work part-time. So we are both able to be flexible with when we work and kind of juggle school drop-off and pick up and all of the fun things that come with having small children.
Well done. Well, I'm very glad you said yes to me and to Law Chat today. So tell me, we first met at an ALTMA conference. I think it was about 5 years ago in Melbourne. And what struck me was also the fact that you are, like me originally, from England. So tell us a little bit about your journey. How come you ended up in Western Australia?
It's not that exciting. I moved over with my parents when I was about 13. They wanted to come here. We'd never been to Australia. In fact, we'd never even left England. They wanted to come here, so we sold everything. They ripped us out of school and brought us here. And to be honest, it was really, really hard. I was 13. It was a really challenging age for me. They told us we're going to go for 6 months, and if we don't like it, we'll go home. So of course I didn't like it, because if I didn't like it, I was going home in 6 months. So I didn't even try to like it. When I think back, I think that must have been horrific for them. I really was horrible. But it all worked out well. We all settled in fine. And yeah, so I came over with my family. So I did all of my secondary school and university here.
Very good. What made you choose a career as a lawyer?
I have one of the, people kind of fall into two classes here, don't they? I want to help people. I want to be a lawyer. They really have that strong desire, or they're the people who weren't very good at maths. And I was in that. I wasn't really great at maths, and I had a political and legal studies teacher who said you should do law, and I thought, okay, I'll give that a go. So that was how I ended up on the law career path.
And was there ever a stage along the journey, either as you were qualifying or since you've qualified, that you had any doubt about life as a lawyer?
That's a really interesting question. I have quite often observed or thought to myself that if I didn't end up in this firm working where I do, I don't think that I would have stayed in the law. I think when I hear and speak to colleagues, particularly juniors who start in the bigger law firms and they kind of go on that traditional law route, I don't think that would have been for me. The long hours and just the lifestyle that comes with that, the hierarchy. So I do often reflect that if I'd have found myself there, I don't know that I necessarily would have stayed. But here, I work at Birmingham Ride. We're a small firm in Perth. I've worked here for 11 years. We are a very forward-thinking and progressive firm. I get and have ever since day one really in the firm have had a lot of say and buy-in in the type of work I'm doing and how I'm doing it and what kind of clients I'm working with. Even just the services that we offer, we're very, very intentional about offering services that we enjoy doing and that we can do really well, and finding ways to basically get rid of the work that we don't enjoy so we can spend our time doing the good stuff.
So is it fair to say that you enjoy life as a lawyer now?
Love it.
That's
Definitely.
great. So let me come on, if I may, to your career as an author now, because you published this book only just within the last 12 months, I think I'm right in saying. So it's called It's Time to Do Law Differently. And our guest last month on Law Chat, Jordan Furlong, describes it on the front cover as the business book lawyers never knew they needed until it arrived. What inspired you to write a book?
Well, I had got to a point where I had started to become known in the profession for my Doing Law Differently podcast. I was being asked all the time by lawyers and different people for advice or consulting or coaching really around how do I do some of this stuff? What is it that I do in terms of the practical steps? And I also came to realize that I have quite a unique background and perspective because I've worked in a small law firm for my whole career. I've been very actively involved in designing legal products, workflow, process improvement, marketing, all of the kind of legal management tasks, as well as in designing practice management software. So I've also got a perspective from the technology side of things. And I did some coaching myself. I'm very big on coaching. And the advice I was given by my coach was, you should write a book. It's going to help you to really work out where you stand. What is it that you stand for? Helped you to tie your ideas together. And he, in fact, wasn't the first person who had suggested this to me. Some other colleagues had over the last few years, and I'd resisted. But then, it was just time.
So when you wrote the book, who did you have in mind this book would benefit most of all?
The book was written specifically most of all, for people who are in smaller law firms. I guess from sole practitioners up to sort of mid-size law firms who are wanting a more modern way of practicing law or of running their business, but unsure about how to do it.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it. The subtext is how to reshape your firm and regain your life. I'm interested to ask you a little bit about how you believe small and mid-sized firms can actually bring that about. And in having read the book, which I think is a fabulous read, well done, I note that you suggest a 6-stage blueprint in your book. And I thought for the purposes of this chat this afternoon, it might be insightful to deal briefly with each of those 6 stages. The first one that you mentioned in the book is the importance of finding a vision. In other words, having, I guess, some kind of idea of how you see your evolution taking place. Do you want to expand on that?
Yeah, so step 1, find your vision, is really what the regain your life part is all about. I did a lot of research and spoke to a lot of lawyers who were kind of in the target market for the readership of this book before I started writing. And without a doubt, the most common theme was, I don't have any time off. I can't switch off. My work has taken over my life. I started my business for freedom and flexibility, but I haven't got that. That was without a doubt the biggest message or the biggest concern or challenge that they were facing. And from my own experience in a small law firm, I know it doesn't have to be that way. We can run a legal business in a way that lets us close the doors at 5, 6 o'clock, whatever time you want to go home, and leave it behind for the evening and go and spend time with family or do whatever else it is that's important to you, and then pick it up again the next day. I do that. I see that. I know that that's possible. And it upsets me almost that other people who are my friends and colleagues can't do that with their own lives. So that was why that's the starting point, is finding your vision is about not only what do you want your business to look like, so what kind of work do you want to be doing, what kind of clients do you want to be working for, how much do you want to charge, how are you, where are you positioned in the market, asking yourself those kinds of questions about your practice, but also the bigger picture question of what is it that you want your life to look like, and how does your business fit in that? So is it that you want to be able to do your drop off and pick up if you've got school age children, and you want your work to fit in the in-between times? Or is it that you've got more time to spend and you want to dedicate the next 3 years to really growing your business and spending more time on that? So it's asking those questions about what's the bigger picture here, and how does the business fit into your lifestyle?
So it's very much the individual driving the business rather than the other way around. Is that fair?
Definitely.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. Well, some good insights into that first stage. The second stage, of course, is a pretty critical one, which is understanding your clients.
A critical one, and interestingly one that's mostly often an afterthought. We go out, we start a business, we say, I'm a lawyer, I've got a practicing certificate, I've got some insurance, off I go, without actually thinking necessarily about what we're going to sell and who we're going to serve. And so the starting point, if you want to build a business that lets you regain your life, is to really have a deep understanding of who your clients are. So that's what are their problems? What is it that they're looking to achieve? How do they want to receive your service? And importantly, thinking about who they are and what's going on in their lives in a way that is bigger, taking a bigger perspective than just the legal issue. The example that I often share on this is family law. So people might come to us with a family law issue. Perhaps they want consent orders or a divorce or something. It's very easy as lawyers just to focus on the legal issues. So we're interested in the dissolution of marriage, but we can offer a much better service that's far more relatable and far more engaging to our clients if we're able to take that bigger perspective and think about how we can help them with the other problems. So how can we connect them to counsellors? How can we connect them to people who are going to help give them financial advice and set them up for the future? Instead of just taking this really narrow scope, thinking, this is the law, the rest of that stuff is not my problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and something that obviously you do on a daily basis at your firm anyway. So number 3, the third stage in your book, you talk about creating amazing solutions.
Yeah, so this kind of ties into the example I just shared about family law, but this is about thinking about what is the problem that they want solved and how are you going to solve it. The family law example is one. Another is the analogy that's often shared about, and I think you and I may have spoken about this the other day, about the drill. You know, why do you buy a drill? Is it because, or a hammer? Let's go with a hammer. Why do you buy a hammer? Is it because you want to put a nail in the wall so you can hang up a painting or something along those lines? People don't just buy a hammer for the sake of it. But if they were to go into the local Bunnings and they see the wall of hammers and they speak to a salesperson who starts asking them questions about what is it you're really trying to achieve, and then they realize that, you know, maybe a screw and a drill is going to do a better job. It's going to make the picture more secure on the wall. It's about what is it that you're trying to achieve, as opposed to the tool, which in our case, or in lawyers' case, is usually time. So they don't want to buy our time, they want to buy a solution to their problem. So it's moving away from the focus on how long something's going to take and the thought process of selling time to instead selling a solution to a problem.
Without wishing to make too much of a pun of the hammer, but it sounds like you hit the nail on the head when literally you said, you know, the Bunnings representative, and for those who are not in Australasia, Bunnings is a hardware store in this part of the world. The Bunnings representative would come and ask you questions.
Yeah.
You know, what is it that you're trying to achieve? And I think in there lies probably the secret for so many lawyers watching this, and that is the importance of asking probing questions. What is it that you actually want? And
not assuming either. It's so easy to see a client in front of you, for them to tell you their story, and you kind of say, well, it fits into this box, and this box, therefore here's what you need. But that's not the right approach. The right approach is actually to ask, what is it that you want to achieve? Because they don't necessarily want what we think they want.
Yeah, yeah. Stage 4 is quite a big chapter in your book, and one that may be unfamiliar to a lot of practitioners out there who are used to doing law in the traditional way, and that's productize your services. Can you expand on that, please?
Yes, definitely. So a product can be a tangible thing, you know, like a phone or anything tangible is what we would usually think of when we think of a product. I talk about productized services, which is almost a hybrid between the tangible product and a service that we're used to providing, or a services we're used to thinking of that in that way. I talk about productized services, which I say is the hybrid. And for me, this is about working out the solution. What is it that your clients want? What do they want to buy? And then predefining a service that solves that problem. So I say a productized service has got 3 elements. First, it has a predetermined scope. This is what's included in the package. This is what is it that you're going to sell to help achieve the outcome that the client is looking for. And in order for it to kind of fit my definition of a productized service, that scope needs to be defined in advance of the client coming to see you. So this is having on your website that we offer conveyancing, and here's the scope of that service. It's, you know, helping you to complete a purchase. It's not, advertising your house for sale or holding a home open. You know, so it's a clearly defined scope of service. Once you've got a clearly defined scope, you can then determine a price. And there are lots of different ways of determining a price. I talk about them in the book, but the kind of the short version is that your productized service should be sold at a fixed price. So that is, you give it a price tag, just like you would see for a product on a supermarket shelf, as opposed to selling the time it takes you to deliver that product. And then the third element is a system for delivery. And this is one of the most important, well, I guess they're all important, but I think this is the element that changes distinguishes a product from a productized service. And that is that it has a system for delivery, which is a series of workflows, process models, precedents, templates that all sit behind the scenes that really drive the service delivery, so that staff, when they're selling or when they're delivering this productized service, follow a set of predetermined steps where as much of that work as can be automated has been automated, and it's a well thought through system. So you deliver a good outcome every time. You deliver a seamless service experience. You deliver, you're consistent in what you deliver because everybody has followed the same steps.
It sounds like there is enough material in that chapter alone for an entire conference. But I thought you captured the essence, particularly when it came to the issue of pricing, which, as I'm sure many viewers know, is a huge topic and a big challenge for many firms, and that is getting away from the billable hour and moving towards a system of either fixed pricing and or value pricing as well. But there were some neat examples which I enjoyed reading in that particular chapter of how to basically systemize that. So well done on taking it, I think, a difficult topic and simplifying it to some degree in a very meaningful way. Also interested too that, of course, in this day of competitive services, that you can't sit on your backside and wait for people to step out of the lift or to pick up the phone.
Mm-hmm.
You do have to be participating in some form of modern marketing these days, and I think the 5th stage of your book is devoted to that as well. Is that right?
Exactly. Yes. So these days, if people want to see a lawyer, they are probably going to go and Google their problem. They're not necessarily going to go and ask. I mean, they might ask friends. In fact, they probably do both. But without a doubt, you can guarantee they are going to go to Google and they're going to search for their problem. Or if they're given your name, they're going to search for your name before they pick up the phone and call you. There's information. We're in the information age, and there is so much information online about any possible problem that someone might be facing, legal or otherwise. And it's important for us to change the view from the traditional ways of marketing, where we would sort of broadcast our message to anyone who would listen, and instead be available to the people who want us at the time when they want us. So when they search for their problem on Google, they need to find our listing. When they are scrolling through their Facebook feed looking for a lawyer, or kind of talking to friends, or they're in groups around this legal problem, or maybe not the legal problem, the bigger picture problem, we need to be there and we need to be available. And that is how people find us, and that's how people choose service providers in the modern day.
Is there any particular tip in that particular stage in the book that you recommend small and mid-sized firms engage in? What do you think is the most effective marketing tool for firms and practitioners these days?
It does depend on who your clients are. And that's why that comes right at number one, because do your clients hang out on Facebook, or are they on LinkedIn, or are they using Google, or are they using an alternative search engine? It really depends who they are and where they spend their time. But I think the overarching kind of tip is to have a good website. A website is so important. It's like your shop front, or your shop in the digital world. And I think a lot of the profession still underestimate the importance of having a really good modern website that's full of information and helpful advice, not just a list of their practice areas.
How important do you think, or helpful do you think it can be for lawyers to engage in what you do increasingly, and that's podcasting and even conference speaking?
Yeah, it's about building a brand and becoming known for something in particular. And the more people who know you, the more people who are likely to refer you to others. But it's also about building your expertise and establishing your credibility in whatever your practice area might be. If your potential client does Google you and they find your website that's full of 100 blogs or 50 podcast episodes, or I'm a keynote speaker, I've spoken here, that obviously relates to the problem that they have, versus someone else who's got a website with just a list of practice areas, you can almost guarantee that you're the one that they're going to call, because they're looking for people who are experts and who have credibility with what it is that they're doing. Because remember, they can Google their problem, they can find lots of information online, so they need to know that the person who they're going to engage knows what they're doing.
Can I ask you about the book? Because certainly from my experience, I found writing a book to be one of the best marketing activities that I ever did. Would you agree it's probably your strongest business card?
Definitely. And I did author coaching, and my coach, Andrew Griffiths, that's exactly how he described it. You're not writing a book so you can try and become the next millionaire based on book sales. You're writing a book so you can give your books out for free, and then it becomes a business card.
So can I just ask you about writing a book? Because for a lot of people, it's wrapped up in mystique. Did you self-publish your book?
Yes.
Or you did? Yeah. And can I ask you how long it took to write it?
Yes, I actually started writing in 2019, and I started writing it myself. I didn't have a coach. I had a framework, but I didn't have a coach. And I wrote probably about 20,000 words, and then I just got stuck. I felt all the imposter syndrome hit me. Who's going to read this? Who am I to talk about this anyway? All of those sorts of self-doubt things crept in, and I stopped. And then I picked it up again in February 2020, this time with a coach. I was part of a author writing program, which was a 6-month program, as well as the one-on-one coaching. I started writing in February, and the book was published in November.
Well done. And how many copies did you knock out first time?
My first print run was about 400 or 500, 400 or 500 copies. They've almost all been sold.
But they went like hotcakes.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done. Well done. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it can be done. And I imagine you're probably thinking about book number 2 by now, are you?
Yeah, I am. I don't quite know what the topic's going to be. I've got some ideas, but it's hard, right? I'm not going to lie about it. It's challenging. I was up at 4 o'clock most days, but I wanted to be because it was fun. But at the end of the process, I realized that how much energy that had taken from me, and I was exhausted. So come November, after the book launch, when I was supposed to be out promoting my book, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to have a break, because this is actually really exhausting.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. I'll just have some time off now, and then I'll get back into it when I'm feeling a bit better. So yes, it's a huge, huge project, but I think it's an amazing I think it's a really great personal development exercise, as well as all the professional kind of benefits that come from it. Just pushing yourself through those challenges, like making the time for it, and the imposter syndrome. Every author deals with this stuff, but being able to kind of move past it has been a really interesting challenge.
Well done. Some great inspiration there for some budding authors of which I'm sure there are hundreds out there who are thinking, is there a book inside of me? But I'm sure that there is a huge latent market for a lot of lawyers to actually position themselves with their expertise by committing pen to paper or finger to keyboard, however you want to refer to it. The last stage in your book is optimizing your operations. Do you want to say a few words about that in the next 5 minutes?
Yeah, so this is about, there are four parts to optimizing operations. So for me, there's people, process, knowledge, and technology. And this is all about really streamlining each of those areas and using those to your advantage to make your business more effective and more efficient. So let's go with process, for example. The processes of optimizing your operations generally comes last in my blueprint, because you need to get your ducks in a row first. There's no point automating a process that's wrong. You need to have designed the product, sent it out to market, tested it, seen what the process looks like, and then once you're at that point, you can go look for the technology to automate it and kind of bring it to life. But this is about defining those processes, using technology to automate, to streamline, using it to your advantage. Knowledge management is a huge one, and one that I'm particularly kind of interested in at the moment, because this is where a lot of my time has been spent in this firm lately. This is about not so much the what to do, which I say the process does. The process tells you, at this point, create this document. At this point, complete this task. The knowledge management for me is about the how to. This is, okay, so at this step, I need to create this document, but how do I actually do that? What's the information that is stored inside my head, and how do I extract that and put it in a place where everybody else can access it and use it? That is one piece of the puzzle that I think is often missing in businesses, but is absolutely essential and can really transform, things like new staff onboarding, and can increase the value of the business as a sellable asset, because the knowledge is not in the head of the business owner, but has been extracted and is there for other people to use.
Excellent stuff. And of course, the closing part of your book is obviously arguably one of the most important of the lot, even though it's not one of the specific stages, but that's the call to action. You've got to implement this stuff.
Yeah.
Otherwise, nothing ever happens. And I guess it's like you writing a book. You get the idea, you sit down, but then once you press the go button, you've got to go all the way through with it. Do you want to have a word or two about how important implementation is?
Well, yeah, it's the most important step, isn't it? And that's partly, well, in fact, a lot to do with why I wrote the book, because a lot of the questions I had and still have are from people who say, okay, I know I need to change. I know that the legal profession is changing. We need to modernize, all of those sorts of things. But what they really struggle with is, how do I do it? I know that I need to do price differently, but I don't understand, how do I do it? And so those 6 steps are really designed to be the how to, the really practical, do this and then this and then this, taking them on that journey. But unless you actually go and make the time and do it, then it's all for nothing. And there are plenty of people who do all the learning and who go to all the webinars and the conferences, but then don't actually take it home and implement it. And I get that it's scary. It's daunting to change the way that we do things, but it's worthwhile, I think. I guess my most important tip here, or the one that's been most effective with the people who I've worked with, is don't make it a last thing on a Friday project. That's what people always start. They say, okay, I'll dedicate Friday afternoons to my working on the business instead of in the business. And it never, ever happens, because Friday afternoon, I don't know, maybe they've had a long lunch, or maybe they've got all this work they're trying to cram in before the end of the week. It needs, if it's a real priority, it needs to be first thing on Monday morning.
Good advice indeed. Our time's up. Doesn't time fly by when you're having fun? If people want to get hold of this book, Lucy, what's the best way? You do have a website, lucydickens.com.au.
Yes, it's available on there, and the ebook is available on Booktopia and Amazon.
Excellent. Well, look, thank you for joining us today. It was an unashamed plug for your book, but that, frankly, having read it, and I do read, as you can see from the shelves behind me, I read an awful lot of books that I think are helpful for the legal services sector, and I have to say that I think yours is one of the most helpful I've read in some time. So congratulations on that. And I'm now going to say au revoir. I'll let you get on with your day and say goodbye to those who are watching this live or listening to it live. And I look forward to chatting to you again, Lucy.
Thanks for having me, Simon.
Great pleasure. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye, everyone.